Welcome to another episode of Co-Founders. This is Alex Mont-Roses, and we have Lisa on as well. And, you're always on with me most of the time. So today we're going to talk a little bit about social media in the sense of like how we've been navigating it within our family and certain things that are, kind of tying back to like screen time and all these other things, because I know that it's a topic I think every family is having with their kids. We have friends of ours. Oh, and by the way, I have my Moncord. I like these sweatshirts.
I know.
We
need
to get more
too.
of these. We need to get more of these. This is Moncord. This is our brand, our company. So anyhow, with that said, we have friends on multiple spectrums, right? I have friends of mine that are like, my kids don't have any social media. They don't have Instagram. They have nothing. And they're like, and they're 17.
Right.
Literally, like 17, nothing. To another friend of mine with two kids, it's like, hey, no, up until the point that they get to like 14, maybe they'll get access, or 13, I think it was. And then we have some that have it because they just do. And at a younger age, they've been able to get an account and so on. So I think, this touches, like, a lot of families have different views on social media, on the access of what they're accessing on their phones and so on. So what do you think? Like, what's your thought on it?
That's a broad question.
Yeah, what's your thought on it?
Well, it's one of those things that I think it's tough to avoid.
Yeah.
I mean, all around, it's tough to avoid. I will say it was easier from my experience, our experience. It's easier to limit the older ones, and it's easier. And I think this goes with any sort of parenting thing. The older one sort of gets the short stick because all of the hard, fast rules go into place with the older one. But once you open that door, then all of a sudden everyone in the family feels entitled to get that because so-and-so has it. And as much as you try to stay firm on those rules, they get bent. I mean, social media is one of those things, but I mean, even go to the iPhone. Mm-hmm. We were very firm that at 12, the kids, this was the rule we set in place with the oldest. Yeah. At 12, they got a phone, but it was a flip phone. I mean, you can't even find flip phones. It was the hard part. Phone, yeah. But it was a phone that had very little access to anything, and she complained all the time because she had to go in and delete messages because otherwise she couldn't get new text messages. Like, it was just an old phone. But the rule was that for a year they had to have that phone, and then they would get an iPhone. By the time the second one got there, he had a smartphone as his first phone because it was a gift from someone else, but it wasn't an iPhone, so we sort of let it slide. And then he had an iPhone before he turned 14 or 13, and then the last one just got like an old iPhone that didn't work as a phone, but she got it when she was like 10. So, and that was not from us.
That wasn't from us.
That was not from us.
Yeah.
But
which, by the way, can I pause for a minute?
Yeah.
Because that's a frustrating part of like having a blended family.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, this was probably better
for one of the other
on the other show, but when we talked about challenges. But it's frustrating when you have your rules in one house, right, and then the other parent over here is like, well, that's not my rule,
right? But
that's a hard thing to
we have our rules, and they also have rules that we're like, but we don't agree with that rule. Why do we have to follow your rule? It is hard.
Yeah. So she got it at 10. And I think pissed off like the older ones because they're like,
well, everybody.
It pissed off everybody because we're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
That's not cool because they're not accounting for the dynamic of the family. They're just
and they don't necessarily have to. I mean, I guess that's the thing. And we may not agree with it. And fortunately, that stage is over. Yeah. I'm sure there's other stages coming, but that stage is over. But when it comes to social media, and you talk about different social media avenues. I mean, Facebook being the one for our generation. We hear it's for old people, but everyone I know is on Facebook. You've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got Snapchat considered social media. YouTube is considered, in my opinion, a social media. you have kids like Ryan's Toy Reviews. He had a YouTube channel when he was 3 years old, I think. They started with him. So it's setting those rules in place for your kids, but some of the examples that they're seeing are kids that are younger than them that have, you know, I mean, I think the last number I heard, Ryan made like $26 million last year based off of his YouTube channel, and then of course all of the extra products that came with it. So it's like, gosh, that's an amazing opportunity we have. And there's a ton of challenges that come with social media of, I mean, well, they're endless, but you know, the exposure of your kids to the general public, which there are creepers in the general public. You know, we've all seen How to Catch a Predator or whatever that show was, where they set these guys up going after teenage girls and then busting them. And it's crazy to me. There's people out there that are basically stalking these kids on social media. So how much access do you want to give them? Yeah. To open that up?
Yeah, I think it's tough in the sense of like, because we've struggled with this too, you know, early on. Now it's like, you know, our kid, you know, the older ones have like Instagram, they have TikTok and all that. I'm okay with it ultimately. And here's the reason why. Because we're on these platforms too.
Right.
Or at least I am.
I'm on Facebook.
In the sense of, and TikTok's my favorite one right now, by the way. But we're on these platforms, so we can also, there's been a couple times where like I've gone on to one of our kids' accounts and I've seen what they've posted, and I've had to have honest conversation with them about like, hey, is this how you want, are you okay with that? Or with what you posted? It allows for an opportunity for like a discussion to be like, you realize like the ramifications of these things, right?
Right.
And not to say it was anything that egregious or crazy, but it was just, it wasn't living to the standards that we have set for our family.
Well, and they don't see the message potentially behind the message.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
They think it's innocent what they're posting, but it's not. When you have people out there that are looking for this.
Right. And that's where I think we've, because it's still like, I to some extent disagree with somebody with, and again, every parent has their way of doing things, and that is to always be respected in the sense of like, you parent your kid that way, that's fine. There's nothing to be said about that. Like you have to respect that as long as there's no abuse and whatever. But what this is my personal view, don't agree with is like at this day and age, like it's almost like if you're refraining them from like something that literally they're all their peers, and again, it's just part of the way the world is now. It would be equivalent to like, hey, you know, every time you go out to see your buddies, all your friends have a Nintendo, a Sega, right? This is going back to my day and age. And you go home, and not because you can't afford it. It's not because but your parents are like adamant, you will not have video games. So what do? You know what you do? You become more, you're like, that's the one thing then that's all you want to do.
Right.
That's what you're creating is this, you know, you take that and you're like, versus looking at it from a perspective of, well, we can in doses say, here's, you know, okay, you know, we understand this is what the future is, this is what it is, versus like you bury your head in the sand and be like, hey, no, nobody's.
Well, because they'll have access to it anyway.
Yeah, they're friends, and it's their friend, and they're looking on their friend's phone at the same videos because they're all hanging out and all. And by the way, your kid has a phone that you can, just because you don't have an account doesn't mean you can't go on.
Right.
I think a lot of parents don't understand that too. Like you can still view a lot of the content without ever having an account. You know what I mean? And again, that ties back to like, you know, then what kind of software are you putting on the phone? And I do agree with that. Like, especially as the kids get older, there's so much access to like just pornography, all sorts of things that you don't want your kids to be exposed to. So, you know, we use like Covenant Eyes on our phones, although I know we have to do an update on that, but which gives us access to validate kind of the sites they're visiting and so on, which is, you should be doing that. that's the one thing you should be doing, is monitoring that, because you and I are of the same mind. Like, I think a lot of times our kids get entitled, and I, in the sense of like, well, it's my phone. It's like, well, hold on. If you live in the house that we're paying for, and we, I think one of our kids just, what was it, like a few weeks ago, said, oh, I bought that with my money. And they forget, like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
The day that you're out on your own and you're not having somebody feed you is the day that anything you buy in the house really, it still doesn't really truly belong. You're kind of a steward of it until you leave that house or get old enough.
Well, and I think there's an importance in, especially with something, they're mini computers, these phones that we carry around. They're computers. The kids have access to everything. I don't care if they bought it. We have to know what they're doing on it, because we're still responsible for the well-being of our children. Right,
of course.
And so she may have bought it, but we're still responsible for the well-being.
Exactly.
As a collective set of parents.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we get to say.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I think there's importance in that.
100%.
And like with the social media, I think one of the things that concerns me most about it is the self-esteem part of it.
Yeah.
As an adult, if I post something, which I post so rarely anyway, but if I post something, it's a natural thing for me to go back and see how many people liked it, how many people commented on it. And if I can get a certain number of likes, that makes me feel good about myself. But if I don't get any likes, that makes me feel bad about myself. And I'm a 41-year-old woman. Mm-hmm. So that's crazy that my sense of self-worth can be altered by this little thumbs up thing. And so what is that doing to our kids? And so that's some of what concerns me with the social media, is that their self-esteem is being established by this thing. They're putting something out there in public, and they're deciding whether or not they're good enough based on how many people like it or how many people comment on it. And that's insane. Yeah,
it exposes the insecurities of all of us, right?
Right.
It's really what it's doing. Social media does. But it's in a very tricky situation when you're giving that to kids that don't understand.
Right.
Like, we can rationalize those things as adults. Most of us can. In the sense of like, you know what? I got 5 likes. I know who I am. Right? It doesn't matter.
But it still stings when you see your friend posted something and they got 25 likes and you got 5, and it's like, well, people don't like me. It's a natural thing to think.
And what's frustrating about that, just on a tangent, right? It's like, you're telling me, and I almost think at that point it becomes very, it depends, right, on what was posted. I think a lot of times there's jealousy, there's envy, there's a lot of things that then, by the like not happening, it's a confirmation of two things. One is the content was very bad, right? We're like, in the sense like it sucked. Why? But I personally, like, I feel for people. Like, I'll scroll, and if I see somebody has like 3 likes, and I'm like, man, they took the time to tell somebody this, like, out of courtesy. Like, my thumb can move to hit a button. Like, I can give that much courtesy and that much, like, have some wherewithal like that. To your point, people are like, and whether they take that like and it matters or not, it's not the point. The point is, like, they took the time to post something that if you looked and said, I can see that they're trying to add value with this, I'm gonna like it, even though. But you have other people that will scroll and not do it because it's for 2 things. One is they don't want to encourage, right, the post, and there could be jealousy, could be envy. There's a lot of things that social media is bringing out of people. So it confirms either the content wasn't good enough, in the sense of like it didn't add like any like true value. But I think there's another layer. Like, you also have to take into account, like, if it didn't add value to you, but you can look a layer deeper and say, did it come from a place where this person was trying to add value? That's a different question to be asking. And out of courtesy and out of giving a little bit of grace, to be like, I get it. Maybe not for me, it didn't add value, but you know what? I'm going to do it because out of courtesy and out of I can move my little thumb to like your little picture or whatever it is.
We have a friend whose grandmother believes that everyone's posting for her and she comments on everybody's stuff. So there's the flip side of like, okay, well, how long do I just like stuff? I mean, I could sit on Facebook forever, right?
No, but that's not.
So I know
that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is, again, this goes back to the family, but now we've transitioned to the adults because we're just as guilty of a lot of this stuff. But the point I'm making is, it's not that you're going to sit there and like everybody's stuff, because that's ridiculous. Because it's a time vampire. Like, that's just a waste of everybody's time. Okay. What I've seen is there's an attempt, an honest attempt to add value on the platform, whatever platform. And you see that honest attempt, and then you see people not encouraging or not, because everybody has insights. By the way, everybody sees, oh, I posted and look, 400 people saw it.
And 2 people liked it. So you're telling me out of 400 people that, again, going that extra layer of knowing, like, was the content good or not? If it's bad content, then yeah, dude, that's on you. You got to improve your content. That's a way to validate, like, hey, I got to be better at adding value on the platform. On the flip side, if you see the attempt and that person's trying to add value, that's where I think there should be more. I would say there should be more courtesy on these platforms to understand, like, people are trying and they're trying to get better, and to move your little thumb doesn't take much. And don't do it because you're hating, because you're like, I don't like this person, so even though they put value out there, I'm just not going to do it. Like, respect the effort to some extent, right? And I don't think that that's happening enough, and for multiple reasons, not just because of bad content, but I do believe there's just a lot of haters, and I know that. So I think with respect to kids, that it all goes back to communicating with your kids. So when it comes to social media, communicating that to them. And it's not just, how do you feel when people don't like your stuff? How do you think other people feel? So give them the respect, give them the courtesy.
Yeah,
so I think it's something.
100%.
I think it's something that's a conversation to have with your kids. But as parents, I think the big things with social media is whatever you choose to do with your family works. If you choose to not let them on social media, great. That works. If you choose to let them on social media, I think some of the important things are, know what platforms your kids are on. Yeah. You also should be on it and understand it.
Of course, 100%.
You should understand Snapchat pictures disappear after however long. So knowing that your kids are on there, if they're sending things through Snapchat, they need to understand the danger of still sending it. That picture doesn't disappear. That message doesn't completely disappear. Yeah. So it's knowing that and understanding that. And so that you can also see the content that they're looking at. You know what I mean? I know you've gotten really into TikTok, and if the kids are on there too, it's important to know what can they see on TikTok? What types of videos are there? Because you have to have that conversation with your kids. You can't just assume. And I think TikTok evolved from Musical.ly. It used to be Musical.ly. And Musical.ly, a lot of parents, myself included, thought it was very innocent kids doing little music videos.
Yeah, I remember some years ago we went through a whole thing.
We went through a whole thing with it because there were videos on there that were not appropriate for my 11 or 12-year-old. And because the only thing I saw of it was her doing silly little videos and her friends doing that. It's really important as parents to know what else is on there, what can they see, and having that conversation with them. It all comes down to communication. And with regards to the self-esteem part of it, kids need to understand and adults need to understand, you're seeing the highlight reel of people's lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, you're seeing a montage of all, for some people, you're seeing a montage of the most amazing moments of their lives. And I saw a meme the other day, and it was about a husband, and his wife had posted a picture, great day with the kids, having so much fun. And he's like, yeah, but when I got home, she was like, do you know what these little shits did today? But on social media, it looks amazing. You know what I mean? The kids are so fun. They're having fun playing in the snow. What you don't post on social media is one kid punching the other in the face and giving them a black eye, and one pushing another one down in the hallway and their lip is bleeding. You know, we don't post that stuff. You post the happy stuff. So it's important for us as adults and also for our kids to realize that's the highlight reel.
That's a great point. And that's where I think I think there's a huge opportunity in the sense of, and I agree, any way that the parent wants to parent with regards to that, it's the right way. Whether it's like, hey, you're not getting it because there's a reason why they're doing that. If they're like, hey, we're going to give it to you in doses, there's a reason doing that. You assume, and you always make the right. You want to assume and have the spirit in mind that they're doing that because it's for the benefit of their family, their unit.
Right.
So you can't ever disrespect that. That's got to be honored. I think there's a massive opportunity, again, for connecting with your kid in the sense of like when you have these platforms and the availability and they have the availability, you can bring honest conversations around like, hey, why do you think that kid got bullied? Why? What do you think about that? Hey, why do you think that girl is only showing her ass on all these pictures? Honest question, right? What do you think about that? Do you think that's, you know what I mean? Like, why is she doing it? Why are this video over here about this or that, right? It opens up an opportunity for a discussion that otherwise you would never even be able to have.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to have those because those discussions really bring out like curiosity and understanding of like why do we do the things we do? You know what I mean? As a society, and really create a better dialogue with your kid. I think that's where I want to see us as a family like be, in the sense of like creating the dialogue. I've had that conversation. It was with one of our kids around a very certain video that she posted with her friend on TikTok. And I had a honest conversation. I said, so is this how we think things should be? And and then the more we got in that conversation, she's like, no, I mean, I see what you mean. Because if without those conversations, it's only going to get deeper, it's only going to get worse. And you start to assume that this person over here posting this type of stuff is okay because they have 1 million followers and they have 1 million likes, but yet their content is horrific in the sense of like, is that really what you want your kid to grow into?
Right. Just
to get a like? No. But if you don't have those conversations, they may assume that that's okay. And then they start doing those things, right? So it just opens up a huge opportunity. I think that was the optimizer moment, right?
Yeah.
It's really, you can optimize your dialogue. You can optimize your, heck, even if you don't want them to have an account and you have the account, sit down with them and scroll through some of the pictures that you're seeing and like have an honest conversation. What do you think about that picture? What do you think about this comment that this person made? Why do you think they did that? What are they looking for? And see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think we're in that mode right now, especially with our kids. So again, yeah, it's a great topic. There's a lot of different views on it, and we know that. We're not right or wrong. It's just there's different views, but it's an interesting topic because it's where society's at, and it's going to continue to kind of go down this path.
I don't think it's changing. I don't think this is, social media isn't going.
No, it's part of our life. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's only going to continue to evolve and turn into different things. So,
yeah.
All right, I think we're done for this one. Do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Co-Founders.
Awesome. Thank you.